Hello all, welcome to Abhiram IAS Academy. We are going to discuss a cover article on RTI today. Okay, it will be important for your mains. We are going to discuss the editorial that appeared on January 9th, that is Cripple and Scuttle. It says that governments are discouraging the exercise of right to information and what are the Supreme Court observations in this matter. So we are going to discuss them. It is important for your GS2, Polity, Fundamental Rights, and also governance aspect, which is RTI Act. So we are going to discuss this. What are the traditional mechanisms of transparency in the government, and what are the state's machinery that will ensure some level of secrecy in its functioning, and why should we have transparency in the first place, and what is the journey of RTI. Okay, we will also go through the cases regarding RTI and what are the important provisions in the RTI Act. Are there any exemptions to the RTI Act, and what is the appeal mechanism for any grievance redressal. There is also been one amendment, that is in 2019 amendment. What are the implications of this and what are the criticisms regarding this amendment, and we will also see what the editorial column says. Traditionally, governments have various mechanisms to disclose information to the public. They are nothing but these transparency mechanisms, and we can see press conferences, annual reports, parliamentary reports, and gazette publications, economic survey. They are all mechanisms of transparency in a traditional sense, and they will complement the other mechanisms of accountability like CAG, okay, Comptroller and Auditor General, and parliamentary process itself, and also judiciary. States have numerous mechanisms of secrecy to ensure the sensitive information is not disclosed to the public, and to safeguard its national interest and public interest, and also foreign relations. Apart from this, officials, if they are subjected to undue scrutiny or judgment by the public, they will be afraid to take any kind of policy radical reforms. So that is the reason for such mechanisms of secrecy in the state. We have 1923 Official Secrets Act, where the public officials subscribe to oath of secrecy. That is, they will not disclose the official information outside unauthorized. We also have Section 123 of Indian Evidence Act, where the governments can simply deny to disclose any government documents which might be of use in evidence in court trials. There is also a requirement of obtaining permission for any kind of prosecution against government officials, especially higher officials. You have to obtain sanction from the appointing authorities, that may be president for higher officials in the central government and governor, okay, in the state government. Then we have censorship power also. So to protect the public interest, we have censorship powers with the government, that is also ensuring secrecy, and in-camera proceedings. So any kind of judicial trials or departmental proceeding trials may be having in-camera proceedings. That is, the trial will be conducted in camera, not in public. Then we have defense related matters also, because the sensitive information might give advantage to our adversary. So in defense related matters, in the interest of national security also, state can have secrecy. Then, however, there are criticisms that national interest, data privacy, and public interest, all these terms are used as blanket justification to deny information to public. Then we have classified historical documents. That is, any kind of controversial historical events may be documented but not disclosed to the public. For example, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose life documents are not yet available to the public. Then we have internet shutdowns provision also under IT Act 2000. So why do we have internet shutdowns? In a volatile situation or any kind of violent conflicts like communal violence, there may be a risk of spreading false rumors. So to prevent that, we have internet shutdown provisions also under IT Act 2000. So why do we need transparency? Globally, if we see any kind of whistleblowing act, what is whistleblowing? Whistleblowing is nothing but a person who is a private individual or within the organization may be interested in unearthing huge scams, okay? And he is called as whistleblower. So all the kinds of whistleblowing acts at the global level like WikiLeaks, Panama Papers, Edward Snowden, all of these are private individuals, right? Not the government. So we can see that government is interested in secrecy, okay? And it will usually use the provisions of secrecy to shield the corrupt. Okay, this has been the experience on the practical level. So, however, there is a contemporary thinking that we have to share information to the public. So, information sharing will lead to informed citizen who will be empowered to participate in the administrative process. So, it will lead to citizens' empowerment also. And even the good governance practiced by the World Bank also have transparency as one of the ideals. So, shared governance empowers citizen and ensures his control over government. It is also a good governance practice. Another major reason why we need transparency is to deter corruption. So, corruption thrives in secrecy and avoids open spaces. So, that is one major reason why we need to have transparency. Let us have a look at RTI's journey globally. So, globally, it has begun in Sweden in 1766, eventually started by US also, but after 200 years, okay, that is in 1966. Then comes South Africa in 1997, and then in United Kingdom, it is in 2000s where the right to information was legalized by Freedom of Information Act. And then in India, there is a civil society group called as Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan in Rajasthan, which conducted Jan Sunwai programs. What is Jan Sunwai mean? It is nothing but public hearings. Okay, it used to conduct public hearings and ask the beneficiaries of various schemes, did they actually get the benefits they intended? So all these kind of details were questioned publicly, and they conducted an informal social auditing. Okay, so this movement eventually led to two things. One is social audit mechanism, and also right to information or transparency. So this was in 1994 in Rajasthan. Eventually, India adopted Right to Information Act in 2005, legalizing the right to information. Then even globalization encouraged and accelerated the movement for transparency. Globalization has also accelerated the demand for transparency and created a movement for Right to Information Act. So how does it happen? So usually when we open our borders to the outside, we also see the others, that is economically advanced nations are observed. When we observe them, we see that some mechanisms like transparency mechanism, accountability mechanisms, stronger institutions or judiciary, all of them have contributed to their advancement and stability in the long run. So we get to know about them, and we also start demanding we need transparency. So that's how globalization also helped in accelerating the demand for transparency. Let us have a look at the judicial journey of the Right to Information Act. So initially in 1975, we can see Raj Narayan case where the court upheld that right to information comes under Article 19 and it is a fundamental right. Okay. In 1981, SP Gupta case also upheld that public has to know how the governments are functioning. They have to access the government's records. So all these are upheld in this case, that is SP Gupta case in 1981. Then we have 2002 Association for Democratic Reforms and 2003 People's Union for Civil Liberties case. In these two cases, we have obtained some major electoral reforms, that is transparency in the election process, and the MPs or MLAs, whoever wants to contest for them, they have to disclose certain information regarding them. So what are the information they need to disclose? They have to disclose the assets they hold and also their dependents. They have to disclose their educational qualifications, okay, and also any kind of criminal records if they have. So Association for Democratic Reforms case in 2002 upheld the right to know about these things, but the government has amended the Representation of Peoples Act 1951 and restored the earlier case. So, but in 2003, People's Union for Civil Liberty case restored the Association for Democratic Reforms case, that is, it upheld the right to know about the information regarding these electoral candidates, okay. So, it strengthened the transparency in elections. So, that is one significant case. Next comes 2011 CBSE versus Aditya Bandyopadhyay case. In this case, the court upheld that exam answer sheets may also come under RTI purview. Okay. So, after this case only, even the exam answer sheets are coming under RTI Act. So, people can access how the papers are corrected and to rule out any unfair mechanisms in the exams. In 2013, we have Namit Sharma case. That is, The court upheld that information commissions need to be filled with varied professionals, not just the government servants or retired government servants. Then we have 2015 Jayanti Lal N. Mistry case. So in this case, RBI has argued that the bank's inspection reports cannot be disclosed because I am a data fiduciary for the bank's data. But the court opined that you are not a data fiduciary. You are a regulator and the people have the right to know about the transparency in banks functioning. So you have to disclose the inspection reports on any banks. Okay, that is, it improved transparency in financial governance also. Then we have 2019 Subhash Chandra Agarwal case. What does this case say? So even the judiciary has to be brought under the purview of RTA Act. So this was established by 2019 Subhash Chandra Agarwal case. In 2019 we have Anjali Bharadwaj case where the petitioner argued why are there so much delays in filling the vacancies. So this is regarding the delay in filling up the vacancies. Let us have a look at the provisions of RTA Act. So RTA is established as a legal right under this act, and we have section 2H which defines the public authority. Any public authority has a responsibility to constitute PIO, that is Public Information Office, and also the government has to disclose the information proactively even without asking. They have to be proactive in disclosure, and any kind of RTA application has to be disposed of within 30 days. That is, you have to provide information within 30 days itself, else you will be fined up to 25,000. Okay. Then we have penalties. So that is the penalties. The Act also tries to establish a grievance redressal mechanism by setting up numerous institutions like information commissions at state and the central level. Then we have another provision, that is RTI overrides other acts like Official Secrets Act or Indian Evidence Act. So let us have a look at the exemptions under the RTI Act. So these are the exemptions. The first three regarding sensitive information. Any kind of sensitive information may threaten our sovereignty if it goes out of control. So for national security, sovereignty, and also to safeguard our foreign relations, we have exemptions under RTI Act. Then personal information also, for the concerns of data privacy, they can be exempted under RTI Act, and also cabinet papers. So why cabinet papers are also an exemption? So cabinet, we all know, is a collective body. It works on the principle of collective responsibility. Okay. Even if one minister disagrees, they still have to go and abide by cabinet's decision because they are upholding collective responsibility. And also, the ministers may be free from any kind of undue scrutiny by the public which might hinder their free and frank discussions and decision making. So that is why we have cabinet papers also. Another reason is, if any sensitive policy information is disclosed to some people, it might give them undue advantage also. So that is also one reason why cabinet papers are not disclosed until it is implemented. The government can disclose after implementation, like in demonetization case. Then what is the appeal mechanism? So this is the appeal mechanism. Initially we have public information officers at the bottom level, and in the state government and in the central government, these are the various stages. So initially there will be public information officer, then there will be appellate authority within the government. Okay, and then we have State Information Commission here, whereas Central Information Commission here, and then the next appeal lies to the High Court here, whereas in central government it lies to the Delhi High Court. Okay, and final appeal lies to the Supreme Court. So these are application to the Public Information Officer, first appeal to the appellate authority within the government, then we have second appeal to the State Information Commission or the Central Information Commission, third appeal lies to the High Court or the Delhi High Court, and finally Supreme Court has the final appeal. So this is the appeal mechanism. Then 2019 amendments. So 2019 amendment has reduced the tenure from 5 years to 3 years. Okay, why do we need 5 years in all of the major constitutional or statutory bodies? Because they can be assured of secure tenure and function without any fear or favor during the tenure of the government. So that's why most of the bodies have 5-year tenure, but it was reduced to 3 years after 2019 amendment. We also have another provision, that is central government will decide the salary conditions. Earlier it was equivalent to election commissioners. Okay, election commissioners, but now it has changed to the discretion of the central government. Next, there are some criticisms regarding the RTI implementation and also the latest amendment. What are the criticisms? So there is huge backlog in the cases and the government is not so proactive in disclosing information to the public as mentioned in the RTI Act. And we have low awareness among the public also. Most of the public don't file RTI. Okay, they are either not aware or not have the access to it. There is also another criticism that the act is being misused for personal vendetta or official harassment. So if we file RTI unnecessarily on officials, it may threaten their functioning independently. Okay, it may threaten their independent functioning. They will be fearful and not take any radical reform decisions. That is one criticism. Another criticism is the amendment has weakened the RTI Act, and there is also delayed response. That is, there are huge backlogs. If we see in Central Information Commission, we have 23,000 appeals pending, whereas all the state information commissions combined, we have around 4 lakh appeals. Okay, 4 lakh appeals are pending. So let us have a look at the challenges. So what are the major challenges in this act? RTI activists have threat for their life. Okay, they're either harassed or they end up being killed. So these are the popular examples. In Maharashtra, we have Satish Shetty, who tried to unearth the land scam that is on Pune-Mumbai highway. There was forging of documents, okay, to grab excess land beyond authorization. Then we have Amit Jetwa. He is in Gujarat and he tried to unearth the illegal mining happening in the Gir forest region. There is also Shahla Mahsood. Okay, she is in MP, Madhya Pradesh. She was shot dead outside her home in Bhopal. So she was an environmentalist and also she participated in India Against Corruption movement led by Anna Hazare. Then there is also another challenge, that is government tries to overuse the exemptions under the act, that is the public interest ground, national security ground and privacy ground. So all these are acting as blanket justification for not disclosing information. Then there is also poor infrastructure in the government, that is it lacks physical and human resources because there is lot of vacancies. They are not filled up. Okay, that is nothing but lack of proper human infrastructure, and it is not willing to disclose any information. It wants to be secretive. Then there is another challenge, that is digital divide. So a person in rural or remote location may not have access to online infrastructure or digital infrastructure. So he may not file the RTI online. So that is another challenge of digital divide. So let us have a look at what the editorial actually says. So it is discouraging the exercise of RTI, that is the government actions are discouraging the exercise of RTI, and also government is uncomfortable with the transparency. This is the observation by Supreme Court. And there are also attempts to dilute the act like the 2019 amendment. With frequent amendments, there will be lack of clarity in its implementation. So that will create one problem. And there are also huge delays or denial of information in the public offices. The article also says the Information Commission has become dysfunctional because there are huge vacancies pending. For example, in Central Information Commission, there are 8 vacancies pending and there are so many in State Information Commissions. We can also see lot of pending appeals. Like in CIC, we have 23,000 pending appeal cases. So all these vacancies and resource shortage may lead to hindering the ability to process the appeals and deliver the justice in time. So it is creating a dysfunctional Information Commission. 2019 Anjali Bharadwaj case is about the backlog of lot of cases pending, and the Information Commission vacancies are also pending. So a petition was filed in Supreme Court to fight these. So the court has given some directions like proactive advertisements must be given regarding the applicants list, what are the criteria for selection, and publish the search committee details also, and then fill the vacancies in timely manner. So these are the directions given in this case. However, even after 5 years, the directions were not adhered to. So there was a petition again filed in Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court has some comments. What is the use without staff? Shows some urgency in filling up all the vacancies. It also gave some directions to DOPT, that is Department of Personnel and Training. So it gave directions for strict timelines for selection within 2 weeks. Okay. And it also asked about the details of the search committee and also applicants list. And to states also it issued directions like you have to fill vacancies within specified time. Supreme Court also made some observations like open-ended tenure has replaced the secure 5-year tenure, and also there is a dominance of retired civil servants heading these positions rather than varied professional backgrounds, which was the case in Namit Sharma. Okay, in Namit Sharma case, the court opined that there had to be varied professionals, but this was not adhered to. Supreme Court opines that there will be consequences for this neglect of filling up vacancies. There will be a huge backlog of cases, and some cases it might take even 6 years to resolve any appeals, and by aligning with the interest of the powerful, it is discouraging the public to seek information, and without any systemic reforms, it is very difficult to uphold transparency and accountability mechanisms. Let us understand the dangers of weak implementation. So, it will lead to lack of public scrutiny. Public scrutiny is essential to uphold accountability of the public officials. So, without such public scrutiny, the authority goes unchecked. Okay, that will erode the accountability also, and it will ultimately lead to inefficient policy decisions and policy implementation. So, and cumulatively, it will lead to loss of public trust in the government institutions, and it hinders the exercise of social audit also, because social audit heavily relies on Right to Information Act. It also weakens the citizen. The citizen was supposed to be empowered with information and participate in the administrative process, but with weakened implementation, this becomes impossible. The citizen will be weakened and unable to participate in the administration. Unchecked authority will lead to misuse of power, because the officials may favor only those whom they are close to. So that will lead to misallocation of resources also, and it will discourage any genuine investment, because genuine investment is possible only when there is fairness in competition. So that is not possible if there is a lot of secrecy, and the accountability mechanisms like this will not work. So how can we conclude this? We can conclude by saying all the major scams have been unearthed using RTI, like Colgate scam or coal block allocation scam. Then we have 2G spectrum scam, and also the latest Adarsh Housing Society scam, where the war widows and the veterans have to get the housing or the flats allocation, but it was misallocated and given to the undeserving. Then we also see fluctuations in India's rankings in Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. It has begun from 85 in 2014, okay, this is 2014, to 93 in 2024, which means it highlights the inconsistency in the approach of government in handling the transparency or accountability mechanisms. We can also say there is a close link between RTI and whistleblower protection, because RTI activists end up being killed or harassed. So we have to protect the whistleblowers also. We need stronger implementation of Whistleblower Protection Act 2014. And then we can end the article by saying, Second ARC has said, RTI is the key to enhance transparency and accountability in governance. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Abhiram IAS Academy.